Welcome to Side Notes. I'm here today with two members of a tribute band called the McCartney Years, Yuri and
Yes.
Karen.
Yeah.
And also, you guys have very interesting histories. Yuri, you originally came out of Holland. Karen, you were involved in the past with doing marketing for artists. You also have a diploma from Van Shaw College, the recording engineer. So you're bringing a lot to the table, both of you.
She is. She's bringing a lot to the table. Yeah. Everybody in this band has a very important role, and whether that's technical, because I'm not technical. So this is where Karen and then Daryl come in, another member. But yeah, everybody has a very important role in the band, and you know, it's like multiple organs working together and becoming one band that we are, the McCartney Years.
Well, if you take a look back in the 60s, we had Janis Joplin, we had Hendrix, had the Doors, we had the Beatles were really one of the forefront for, I think that they were amongst the best songwriters out there. Elton John came out of there, David Bowie, the list keeps going on. I mean, it's amazing the influence that they've done. You guys are doing, not only you doing Paul McCartney stuff, but you did George Harrison stuff in the past.
Yeah. In 2009, we did a show, because it was 10 years since George Harrison's death, which was, I believe it was November, the end of November. Yeah, you know, sometimes, because I mean, all the individual Beatles, even after even after the Beatles split up, they still obviously had a connection. So you know, covering one artist like what we do, McCartney, you know, you're still connected to the other Beatles, and I felt that I could not go past that date without doing something. So yeah, put on a show with George Harrison's music, just you know, an evening to play ode to George's music, you know, because you know, I mean, you know, even though when the Beatles split up in 1970, you know, the world was sad, but you know, after the split up of the Beatles, a lot of the individual Beatles, you know, like Paul, George, and John, and even Ringo, you know, made great music. So yeah, you know, we did a show commemorating his music. And we did the same thing for John in 2010, which was 30 years to the date that John passed. So yeah, you know, I mean, I've been a big fan of the Beatles, and you know, and I mean, I got into Paul McCartney because obviously the music is fantastic and such, but you know, it's just vocal range and interest. So I followed McCartney's music, but I still love all of the other Beatles, their individual music, and I play it. I mean, I play it outside. I play it everywhere. So outside of the concert, I'll come home tonight and I'll do something like that. Yeah.
And this question's aimed at both of you. How many hours of practice you have to put in for, let's say, 1 hour of performance?
Oh, it's hard to say off the top of my head, because the practice part of learning all the songs and rehearsing, what happened, you know, when we first joined the band, and it was hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of learning and practicing and rehearsing. So now that we all know it, I mean, we still get together once a week and rehearse, you know, 2 or 3 hours. But the bulk of the time was that initial, like, just putting everything together. So I can't even estimate, but it was like my husband and I, when we joined the band,
Three-digit hours.
We would just have the music on all the time. So we'd be in the car and driving somewhere, we would listen to Wings, and just so that we could learn every little nuance of everything, because we play it exact, right? So.
And what is the the favorite song you guys have, not only from the Beatles, but let's say the Wings too?
You know, it's a question that has multiple answers, or actually that has a single answer, but on different times of day or night. You know, just the whole show that we do is a combination of songs that we all like, and we like them the way we play them after each other. You know, we make really careful decisions about what song follows another song. But to really pin it down to one song, I don't know. You know, I think everybody sort of has a different idea about that. And I think I mean, I just enjoy playing it, all of it, because it's so versatile, and everybody else in the band loves it. I mean, we actually love the music that we play, all of us. So we just enjoy playing it. But one song, I don't know. Gosh, I really don't know. I don't know.
It's fun just to play it because it all flows together. So I wouldn't say I have a particular favorite either, but
it changes.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
I mean, when I'm in the car, that's what I put on. I put on, like during long trips, I'll play the music, and essentially play the music that we're playing later that day. But yeah, I don't know. Just again, a song means so much more in context than it does individually, and back in the 60s and the 70s and even 80s, a song was a piece of artwork, but the album was as well. There was a reason why they put the songs in order, right? Nowadays, people just skip through songs, and albums really, like real albums, is a thing of the past. So I like songs in context. Like Band Unknown is a great song. Band Unknown is a great song in context with the whole album.
Well, we can't forget at the same time, Sgt. Pepper and the Lonely Heart Band.
Yeah.
That's another.
Exactly. That's a very good example. And that album specifically was a milestone in music history. So it wasn't one song, it was a whole album. And that's sort of like how I think about it. And yeah, you get asked like, what is your favorite song? But really, there's hundreds of songs to choose from to begin with.
Top 5.
Top 5. Okay, well, we could say I love Band on the Run. I think that's a great song. I love some of more of the obscure stuff, a song that we do, Call Me Back Again, which is sort of, I like doing it vocally. I think that one of our favorites really early on was a song called Magneto and Titanium Man, which appeared on Venus and Mars. And the funny thing about that song is that when I introduced it to the group, I knew the song, but I'd never played it before. And I just thought it was interesting, and the guys never really heard of the song, and so we went through it, and then it actually, I think it became one of our favorite songs as a band to play, because, I don't know, not because it's like a hit, like Let It Be or Hey Jude or maybe, Band on the Run, but because it's fun to play. So I think, the other thing is we are biased towards different songs because we look at it from a very three-dimensional perspective, which is liking the song just by listening to it, but also playing it. So yeah, Magneto and Titanium Man is one of the other ones. I mean,
Listen to What the Man Said. It's
listen
fun
to it,
play.
yeah. So Listen to What the Man Said is a great song. I think we're at 4 or so.
Yeah.
so yeah. So there you go. There's 4 out of 5, and you can choose the last one.
What about yourself there, Karen? What are the top 5 songs?
Well, I like Listen to What the Man Said. That's my favorite one to play. Bluebird is another,
Right.
a slower one that's really
Right.
fun to play. Magneto is fun to play. Lady Madonna is fun to play.
Right.
And Call Me Back Again. Those would be, just because, again, they're more fun to play, so.
Yeah.
Sid Bernstein, the promoter from the Beatles, has called you the best on the scene today in regards to tribute bands. How much further do we see the McCartney Years growing, not only in touring but basically in exposure as let's say 5 years down the road?
Really, the sky's the limit. I started this as a love for the music, obviously. I don't know. I have very big ambitions with the band, and I had very big ambitions when I started it. And then one of the things that happened, obviously, is when Sid Bernstein made the accolade and said, you're one of the best on the scene. I think every time when you hit like a milestone like that, it encourages you to go beyond that. Actually, next year, one of Paul McCartney's former guitar players, Denny Lane, who used to front the Moody Blues before he joined Wings, is actually going to join us as a part of our lineup. So, there's a lot of great things happening. And I'm sort of, I mean, I'm sort of making plans and ideas, and then at the same time, I'm sort of sitting on the sidelines and enjoy what's happening. But I think in the next 5 years, we can, well, expect, I don't know, I always say I hope, and I certainly work for it, is that we do even more shows than we do right now. I mean, I could do it every night. I could do it every day. It's something I thoroughly enjoy. Playing with some of the former members of Wings, not just Denny Lane. I mean, we're looking at other members. Lawrence Juber, fantastic guitar player, still active on the scene. Joe English, former drummer. Actually, he's going to see one of our shows in Pennsylvania next year. So, you know, so there's a lot going on right now, and but I just enjoy it. Sit back, enjoy the ride.
Your website, quickly?
It's www.themccartneyyears.net, but we are also on Facebook and Twitter, and if you enter us in Google, I'm sure you will find something. We seem to be like slathered all over the internet. Yeah, no.
And earlier when I was talking about briefly what you guys brought to the band, what I want you to do is I want you to share, when you're growing up, one moment where there is a song or with a band that really sticks out in your mind and ties into your childhood. I'll start with you first, Karen.
Sure. Well, this is funny, but the first thing I can remember is there was a cartoon in the 80s called Gem and the Holograms, and it was about a rock star. She had pink hair, and I was just obsessed with that show, and that's the first thing that I can think of where I was like, I want to do that. So, like, I want to play music, and that's what I want to do for a living. So, Gem.
Is there any song, like any musical group out there too at the same time?
Well, when I was a kid, I mean, I listened to a lot of 80s. That was when I grew up. So Michael Jackson was really, really huge for me and still is. And yeah, like, I know she's not a real band, but Gem was like a huge just influence. And just when you're a kid, you see that, and it kind of like helps you know what you want to do. So.
And yourself, Yuri?
That's great. I never heard that story before. For myself, gosh, I have to pin down my music interest to, well, first of all, my mom was very musical in the sense that she was always singing. And there was always the radio. We always had music on, and we had 2 speakers on either side of a huge cabinet, and near one speaker there was a huge plant, and the other speaker was sort of like in a corner, and so I would often, as a kid, and I still remember this, and to crawl into the corner with my ear up against the speaker because the music was always on very softly. It was always background, so I would get into the corner, and I would curl up and I'd listen to the music, and you know, be radio. But my dad had a very big record collection as well, so you know, often like on Saturday or Sunday, the records would come out, and they play records from beginning to end, and you know, going back to talking about a piece of art, right? So the needle would start on the first song and would go all the way to the last one. Eventually, you know, my dad would play a Beatles record because he had them all, and I remember looking at the sleeves of the albums. And on one album, and I can't remember which one it was, but I think it could be "Please Please Me" or "With the Beatles," one of those early albums. And I'm looking at the back, and I see John Lennon rhythm guitar, and you know, being in Holland and being used to the language there, you know, I thought rhythm was such a fantastic word, you know, with all the consonants in there, and so I figured, well, that's what I want to do. I want to play rhythm guitar. So I asked my mom for a guitar, and then eventually, after asking, I got one. So that's sort of how I got into to play music. And then, yeah, the first song I learned how to play, I think, was Obla Di Obla Da on an acoustic guitar. So I was really proud of that moment. But that's sort of like where it came from. It wasn't really the music to begin with, but it was a word that sort of caught me. And then, you know, I can remember a few other occasions after that you know, because the radio would always be on in the car whenever we would drive to see my grandmother, who lived about 30, 40 minutes away. And I remember a moment where I think it was A Hard Day's Night that came on the radio, and Can't Buy Me Love consecutively. And I remember at the end of the two songs asking my dad, who are these guys? And my dad said, well, those are the Beatles. And I think for me then everything clicked. You know, it was rhythm, guitar, the Beatles, the sleeves, the music, and it just caught me. And I never stopped. And actually my parents don't really understand where I got it from, because nobody really plays an instrument. I mean, my mom played a little bit of piano, but yeah, so that's sort of how that got together.
I know you guys are in a rush. You were going out to do your performance pretty soon. I wanted to briefly get you guys to talk about Karen. You were involved with the marketing artist. You were talking about it just before the interview. I want you to briefly talk about that. How you met, you hung out with Backstreet, and you also hung out with an artist called Robin, and then there were others.
That's true. Yeah. Well, when I was about 19 or so, I was I guess, an intern at BMG, which was a huge record company in Toronto. And then I was a temp, so I would fill in, you know, when people would go on vacation or whatever. I kind of worked in every department. So yeah, Backstreet Boys were on that label. Robin was on that label. I'm trying to think of the other acts, but it was a really huge record company, so it was a great opportunity to see behind the scenes and see really what happens to market an artist. Like, it's you kind of think, well, it's just all the music, but there's a lot of effort and action that goes in behind the scenes. From there, I went to Fanshawe for recording engineering, and that's where I met my husband, who also plays keyboards in this band, and that's how we I guess how we met Yuri. Was you had asked Daryl to play for the Rooftop. I think that's when you guys first met. Yeah. So he had asked Daryl to play a few years ago for a concert, and then when Yuri was looking for new members for the McCartney Years, I just kind of said I could do it. And yeah, that was it. And then I joined. That was about 2 years ago. So. And
Yuri, you actually served in the Holland Navy,
yes.
Netherlands Navy.
Yeah, I did for 4 years. It was really funny because I came out of school, and, you know, sort of my parents have always been traveling. So, you know, for me as a kid, you know, being on the road the whole time, and not like in a music way, because my dad would work in one country for, I don't know, for like a year and a half, and then move on to the next one. So for kids, it was really difficult to sort of like, you know, finish an education. So when I finally got my first diploma, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, you know, and then that sort of kept going for a couple of weeks and a couple of months, and I had the most amazing relationship with my grandmother. And one day she said, well, maybe you should go, and you know, I was 18, maybe you should go into the military. You know, go in a boy, come out a man. And, you know, and she's talking from, you know, she was well into her 70s at the time. And, you know, she's talking, this is how it has always gone for the past, you know, 300-400 years in Holland, right? You're an adult at 18, and you serve your country, and then you come out a man, right? So that sort of got me thinking. I thought, well, yeah. You know, so what am I going to do? And then the Navy came up. So I served 4 years in the Navy doing communications. I suppose not surprising, because, you know, I love communication. I love, you know, music is a form of communication, obviously. So yeah, it was great. I mean, I went in, and they did all these tests and physical tests and IQ tests, because, you know, so at least I can say now legally I'm not insane. Doesn't matter what everybody thinks. No, but yeah, no. So yeah, did that for 4 years. Sailed all the oceans, seen a lot of places, and yeah. And then after 4 years, actually, I use it. Because, you know, in 4 years, I just sort of was able to figure out what I wanted to do. So then I then took what I made during the 4 years and paid for an education. I did management, business management. So I got that degree in Toronto. And then moved back, and now I'm here back again. So, and yeah, it's fantastic. I've been here now since 2007, and yeah, I got my degree, and I became a musician. So,
Well, you guys are amazing, and thank you both for your time.
oh, thank you for doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.